In this series, I'll walk you through how to use COGITO to make your game. If you haven't heard of COGITO, it is a free Godot Engine project template that enables you to make first-person adventures, shooters, and immersive sim type games. Each video that I make will cover one topic, so you can watch them in any order, though if you're new to COGITO, I recommend you start at the first one. In this video, I'm using some assets made by Loaf BRR, or as I'd like to pronounce it, Loaf BRR. They make great assets for Godot, and a lot of them are free, so check them out via the link in the description. They didn't pay me to say this, but I just like their assets, and I wanted to give them a shout out. Alright, so let's get started. So today we're gonna move on to the next room of our game. This is a room that I've prepped that is supposed to be this warehouse, and I want this to be a bit of a challenge for the player to navigate through. The entrance door is here. This is where we'll come in. And then the first thing the player will hopefully see is this little smaller door. And as soon as they'll see that, they'll probably think, okay, how will I get up there? And they'll see all the scaffolding, and they'll try to find a path. So when I play this, and open this door, walk in here, and yeah, you can see up there, this is where you want to be. So what I was originally thinking is I'm gonna use these boards, and I'm gonna make them carryable, so the player will need to figure out how to move these boards to get up there. But as you can already see, like, I'm struggling to get up these boards. Then, you know, I would like try to carry this over here, but again, I'll like bump into colliders, and overall it just doesn't feel too great. And the other thing is that we just made the blaster weapon in the previous video, so I want to give the player an opportunity to use this, to use the weapon in this room. So I was thinking I'm gonna take these little crates that I have here, and I'll make them destructible. I'll make it so that the player can shoot them, and then they'll just explode a little bit, and I'll use those to create a little puzzle for the player to solve, as in which crates to destroy. So for this to work, the first thing I have to do is I have to go to my crates and think of how do I make them destructible. So these are their own little scene. So I'm going to open up that scene and look at it. And it's supposed to be like just a static object, a static mesh with a collision. And that won't work for my purposes, so I'm gonna change this up a bit. But before I do that, I'll save this as a new scene. So I'll go scene save as, and I'm gonna call this COGITO Destructable Crate. Save that. Now that we have that, I'm gonna add a new things. So first of all, I want this to be a rigid body. And I want the rigid body to be my root node. So I'm gonna select make scene root. Then I'm gonna rename this to Destructible Crate. And then, because this is a static body inside of a rigid body, that doesn't work, of course, so I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna keep the mesh, and I'm gonna add a new collision shape. This one's gonna be a cube or a box. And you can see the box spawns in the center of the origin, and that's actually what I want. So I'm gonna move the mesh instead of the collider, because I want this to be centered. This looks pretty good. It's fine if it's a little bit bigger. And then I'm gonna turn this into a COGITO object. So again, go to the root node, quick load script, Cogito object. There we go. And I'm gonna increase the mass because I don't want this to fly all over the place. So I'll set this to 50 kilograms. Now that we have a Cogito object, how do I make this destructible? So for this to be destructible, I need two things. Anything that can like be destroyed or can die usually needs a health component. Because with the health component, you can keep track on how many hit points an object has. You're familiar that we have a health component on the player, but you can actually also attach this to anything else. So in this case, we're just gonna attach a health attribute to this crate. This shows up as a new attribute node. It's a Cogito health attribute. For this one, I want this to have very low health because I want this to be destroyed with one blaster shot. So I'm gonna set the value max to 2 and value start to 2. Everything else I can ignore. And then the one thing I want to look at is sound on death and destroy on death and spawn on death. All of these, as the name says, will be used when this object runs out of health. So first of all, when this runs out of health, I want the crate to be destroyed. So destroy on death, I'm gonna open this, add an element to this array, and I want this to be the root node, because that's the crate. I want the crate to destroy itself, pretty much. Press OK. Second, I want a sound to play. So I'm gonna quick load a sound, and I have like an explosion sound. Sci-fi explosion 5. Yeah, that will work. And then lastly, spawn on death, I want there to be some kind of particle effect. So you can load any packed scene. And I think this is called an impact. Impact 1. Let me just look at this real quick. Sparks. Yeah, that should do it. So it will spawn this particle scene when the crate gets destroyed. Okay, so now that we have all of these things, we're missing one more thing. And that is, how will we actually influence the health? How will the crate be able to receive damage? So for that, we will need what's called a hitbox component. Basically, any object that you want to be able to hit with either, particles, projectiles, weapons, it needs to have a hitbox. So I'm gonna go back here, go instantiate child scene, and I'll search for hitbox, and there we go, shows up hitbox component. And all the hitbox component needs is a reference to the health attribute, because that's how it will pass any kind of damage it will receive. So the hitbox, if it gets damaged, it reduces the health of that health attribute. So you just assign this and you should be good to go. So I'm gonna save this scene and I'm gonna go back to my level. And these crates here, these are still the old ones. So I'm gonna replace these with the ones that we just created. So I'm searching here for Cogito Destruct, and the destructible crate shows up. And I'll just move them right now as children. And then what I'll do is I'll just move them up, and I'm doing this so the position gets inherited. And then the static ones, I'll just delete those, and we'll have our two crates. And right now they're in the floor, so let me just move them up. And there we go. And because they're rigid bodies, I don't have to worry too much about them being a little bit higher off the floor, because they'll just fall down. And I'll move this one over a bit so it's not inside the other collider. And there we go. So let's give this a quick test. Okay. So see my crates, and now if I shoot them, they should explode. There we go. And as you can see, because when they explode, the boards fall down, that already gives me an idea how I can use them to make these puzzles here a bit more interesting. So now that I have my destructible crates, I'm gonna use these to make this path over the scaffolding a bit more interesting. Okay. So let's give that a quick go and see if that works. Gonna walk in this room. And so one thing that I might have to think about is that the player might not intuitively start shooting the crates because there's no indication that they should be. But they might start playing around with these. And honestly, I'm not too worried, even if they don't shoot the crate and they'll just move them. They will be able to get up here. But at this point, they might feel like they're stuck. There we go. So this works. And they can get up here. And then let's see. Yep. Oh, fell down here. So I'll have to get back up here again. And there we go. So this works pretty well overall. I might actually make it that the player is not allowed to carry these boards. And that way they will be forced to use the blaster to create a path up here. So for these boards to not be carryable by the player anymore, I'll just open their scene and I just remove the carryable component. And that's it. Gonna save this, go back to my scene. And then one other thing is, as I said earlier, these little crates. These crates, they don't really stand out enough or look like the player can do something with them. So I'm gonna take a look at them real quick. And I think I have like a texture stickers. There are these stickers here. And one of them is this big warning triangle. And I think I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna put that on my crate. If I go back over here, I already made one of these here, and I'm gonna just copy this and go back to my crate. There we go. And I paste it. Reset the transform. And let's see how this looks. Oh, it's facing the other way. There we go. And then one thing is also like, I want the hexagonal sign. So I'm just gonna make this material unique. And then let me offset the UV. If I'm going a bit faster, don't worry about this too much. There we go. This looks good. I have this nice sticker. So now this has a clear symbol on it, and that will hopefully tell the player that they can make this crate explode. All right, how does this look in the scene? Let's go back to my room. Oh yeah, there we go. I think this looks pretty good. I'm in this room. I can't interact with the boards. So I shoot this. can move up here. Shoot this. Can jump up here. And there we go. I made it through. So now that we have this puzzle room complete, we'll move on to the next room. And in the next room, I want to introduce an enemy. See you next time.